Alright guys, welcome back to the channel and to the garden. Today's video I'm just going to show you a couple plants that I'm going to be doing experiments with over this winter. We've just had our first kind of hard frost, if you will, or real sort of frost. Went down to around about the kind of nearly -2 last night for a good few hours, and you can definitely see some of the effects on the plants here. Just as we take a walk down, you can just see we've got well, Christmas lights on some of the tree ferns. That's not actually providing any sort of heat or protection. That's just literally for looks. But you can see in there we've added some of the straw as well as a ball of fleece into the top of the crowns. Again, this is just for this week. Looks like we're going to potential of a -4, but it really looks like a -2 is probably more accurate. We'll see as we've got the temperature gauge in the garden, so we know exactly what it did go down to. But as we come down here, you can just see a little bit of browning on the Cleopatra. Again, I'm just going to mulch this down once that does die back. Probably won't make it through. Does look like we've got some seed pods, so we'll try and grab those again before tomorrow. Just coming back here, if we take a pan this way, you can just see now Expirements. Yeah, that got hit pretty hard here. See all the leaves kind of browning off. If you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like when, you know, the Musabascius or Expirements or any type of sort of broadleaf tender plant does get zapped. That's kind of what you're looking at. Following this week, when it does warm up on the weekend, I will probably look to do my final protection on these. I may do an experiment with one clump of my Musabasciu, which will just pan down here. And we may do another further experiment with the large clump back here as we did last year. If you didn't see that on the channel, certainly check that out. Down over here, just to show you as well, Colocasia Pink China. Again, you can see how zapped it got down here. To be expected though with this sort of temperature. We've got the first kind of experiment we've got is our Cycas revoluta, which you can just see here. We've got one under cover, and if we pan this way, again, sorry about the mess, we're still mulching things down. We've got another one just here, which is underneath our large sort of bamboo patch. This one, again, is not going to get any sort of protection other than the overhead protection from the bamboo. Be interesting to see if just you know, natural protection of another plant will actually, again, kind of help, and maybe we don't need to do the kind of extremes of protection with these. Again, will be a test. We'll have to see sort of what happens on that one. As we come down here into the jungle area, you can just see this Musabasciu not hit as bad. Again, it had a little bit of overprotection, so just shows some plants are able to kind of help. Now, of course, during this week, this will get zapped back at some point. You know, I'm not expecting it to kind of make it here. We're going to be trying out the Cypress percamanthus in the pond. Now, again, typically these shouldn't make it through, but we'll just see if that little water temperature difference does keep the roots insulated enough just to get through. You can see as we look into this area here, we've got our sort of Dixonias all sort of covered and ready. We may, depending on if the weather does change in the next day or two, put a small wrap around the trunk, but it really just depends on the weather there as to whether we do that. One of the other experiments that we've got going on down here, if we come down the path, is just over here. And that is your Blechnum brasiliensis, or dwarf Brazilian tree fern. Again, typically most people bring these in. I've got 2 of them in the ground. I'm going to be doing a strong straw mulch, as you can see here. Again, we'll just see if that gets through, if we insulate it, similar to other ferns that we've got. Again, be an interesting test. You know, I'm really trying to get as much stuff that I can keep and leave in the ground, as opposed to kind of digging loads of stuff out each year. Some of the stuff I do expect to lose. Obviously, we've done nothing with the begonias. We've got a calathea in here, which again is a house plant that's going to die off, if you can just see it in there. But as I say, you know, sometimes it does surprise me what does make it through. Again, I've had things like snapdragons for 3 years in the ground now that, again, have come back every year or stayed evergreen. So it'll be interesting to see. You can see the Sarcinia, or the pitcher plants, if I just step into here. We don't really have any sort of die-off on them yet, but I do expect these to go into dormancy and die off, which is what the plant does need, really, to get it through. So, you know, this plant should be absolutely hardy for us here in the UK, so it'll be interesting to see how well it bounces back next year. The Musa sycamensis, the Musa everred here, again, hasn't really been touched by it, but it does have the overhead protection of the trees, so again, this will go a little bit longer before I do tend to wrap it. You can just see at the bottom, though, I did add a little bit of the landscape fabric just to start drying out that clump. I will probably go back around today before the evening and put more landscape fabric just around the bases of the Musa for this cold period before we wrap it, try and dry out the sort of corms a little bit more. Again, the last thing we want to do is go into this with kind of wet, soggy soil and having the ground freeze. And of course, that can do quite a bit more damage than if we keep it dry. Another one here, which I can pan two ways. We've got our Robellini, one in a pot, and panning back this way. Try not to make you dizzy. You can see we've got one under just a bit of overhead protection here. This one is in the ground, so it'll be interesting to see, again, if we can get this through with minimal protection. But once again, the rain that we've had over the past sort of month has really waterlogged the ground, so it will be interesting to see, again, kind of what happens there. Just coming around this way, we show you, again, not really an experiment, but we've got some of the baby Dicksonia antarcticas, which again should be absolutely fine. I've been able to get these through the ground no problem, and probably one of my best growing ones is one of the smaller plants here. Colocasia metallica. Again, this probably will not make it through. I will mulch the base down, but you can see it has gone through, again, with overhead protection and kind of, not really damaged any of the leaves. So it just shows you that that kind of minimal overhead protection can really actually make quite a difference to plants. So sometimes, choosing where you plant something can actually make, some of the biggest difference here. Just as we come around this way, another one to show you right here, which is a little bit hard to see. It's going to be your Spanish moss. Now, I've taken the main clump inside, but you can see, so this is your Tillandsia encinoides. There is a good potential that this can actually make it through sort of under the cover of the tree here. It will be an interesting experiment, and certainly now is the time to say, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, feel free to do so. It'll be interesting to follow this throughout the year, follow the experiments that we're doing. One that we're trying again, Washingtonia. Gonna go no protection, just like last year. This one really did struggle. I'm not expecting much out of it, but the fence has seemed to give it that little boost of temperature to get it through. It will depend on the winter. It took a -6C last year without protection. So again, that will be interesting to, see if we can kind of replicate that again down here. Just as we're coming this way, you will notice, you may or may not notice, we've taken out our Cyathias. Those are coming in again just for this cold period. Will come back out as soon as we kind of warm up. They're really not going to probably enjoy again the kind of wet and cold temperatures as a baby plant. Perhaps as a big one we may be able to kind of get that through. Another one we've got here just coming down the middle is, if we take a look at our Aeoniums. Again, we've taken the mother plant inside. Again, I'm not expecting this to kind of do too great, but we'll just see if it will get some growth back from the stalk, if it does get zapped back. Once again, I think for the most part, we already know it's not going to make it through, but you never know, and it really depends on the severity of winter. If we really don't get many below -2s, we could actually potentially see this get through here. We've got one of the more tender Sempervivum. You can just see in there, and again, that one with the overhead cover might just make it through. We will have to see on that one there. Down here, if we go, no, this isn't really much of an experiment, but I'm just giving it that overhead protection, which is our Waggy Princeps cross, which you can just see in there. Once again, just trying to keep that moisture out of the growing point. Last thing I want to do is have a spear pull. But again, it's one of those ones you can't always help it. We can put as much protection in place as possible. And again, still kind of lose things. So I think one thing is not to get too stressed over your plants. I know that can be an interesting thing to say, certainly if it's the more expensive stuff. Just off of here, it's going to be a little harder to show you. If I can just get in. If you just see the straw patch right here, I'll try and zoom. That is one of our blue star ferns, or Phlebodium aureum. We did an experiment with this one last year. We did get it through. I didn't actually put any cover or protection, just an overhead cover. So we're going to try it with the protection, just to see, once again, if that will make a good difference on that side. I have had luck getting that through. So once again, I think we're going to kind of test it and give it that tiny bit more protection. Again, as the ideal kind of thing we want to do with this garden is really to make it as minimal and easy of a garden to take care of moving forward. Of course, we do have some plants that are going to require protection, such as our Dixonia antarcticas, and it all is just based on our temperatures, really. But with that said, it'd be interesting to kind of see what kind of temperatures you guys have had recently. It does look like, once again, we're going to be down to, I would say, a week or two of cold, potentially, and then once again, it really can change as we come up to the lead up to Christmas. Again, if you do get any snow on things like your tree ferns, one thing I suggest, just go out, shake off the snow off the fronds. Again, that can just help to kind of aid the fronds to get through. They should be kind of evergreen and hardy down to around about the kind of -3, -4. So we should be expecting these to get through. Of course, I won't be touching or doing anything with the fronds really until it gets to a temperature that they just can't handle. But yeah, with that said, of course, if you haven't checked out the friends of the channel, they'll be in the comment section below. If you have any questions on things you're trying to overwinter, feel free to put them, again, in the comment section below. I'm more than happy to try and come back to you and help you with that. If you haven't checked out some of the more recent videos that come out, we've got our protection videos out for the onset, as well as the tree ferns, and we will be getting our final protection for the bananas out quite soon. But if you did want to see that early, check out last year's banana protection, and you'll see the method that we go through. But with that said, of course, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.